Yeah, it's an interesting comment. That option inherently implies a lack of ability to navigate between realities, forcing someone to pick a path in one when reality is constantly oscillating between infinitely layered. Yeah, but here's the problem. If you live in a reality and then you start becoming aware that there's another reality, it is one of those cognito hazards, where the knowledge and existence of another reality permanently damages your perception of the original reality that you're from, because you're never entirely sure what exactly the boundaries are, what's really real, what's really not real. Like, for example, let's say you have a MacGuffin, a magic device, like Rick Sanchez does, that allows you to travel to the multiverse and go to any of the infinite alternatives inside the multiverse. So let's say that in one multiverse, your wife gets killed in a car accident. Well, then you just step into another multiverse where she didn't go through the red light and wasn't looking down at her cell phone. Okay, well, then she gets home safely. Now you're in this another realm of existence, and technically speaking, that person you go and visit, it's not your wife. It's another version of you's wife, but for all intents and purposes, she's the exact same person. So, what if you just change places and you get to live in the reality where, even though it's your fake wife, now the person in that reality has been swapped with you and has to live in the horrible reality where your wife died? Like, is that a moral act? It's you. It's a different you. And even if it's an immoral act, would you do it? Or else you'd live the rest of your life as a widow. What if you have like 6 kids, 7 kids? You think about them. It's like, do I want my children to grow up in a reality without a mother versus having a mother? Yeah, that's so easy, right? So yeah, you could technically navigate between the two, but how many of you would take the swap? What would you do? Would you pull that lever, not pull that lever? How much moral courage would you require not to do this type of thing? And that's the question of the pills. It's not just escaping into a different reality. It could be an identical reality with just the exception of one little thing: looking at a cell phone going through a red light or not. And you got to think about these things, not just because it's 11:30 at night on the day after Christmas and I have some time to actually do that. And actually, to show you the power of artificial intelligence, I did this the other day. I was sitting with my brother and we were watching Frosty the Snowman on Christmas Day, and we're having those nice Christmas cookies, and Mom cooked some things, and I just saw on YouTube Frosty the Snowman. We got to watch Frosty the Snowman. We haven't seen it in like 25 years. So we turned the thing on, and as we're watching it, I said, it would be really cool. Let's test the abilities of ChatGPT. So I said, all right, ChatGPT, write me a story based on Frosty the Snowman, but change it up so that the plot of Frosty the Snowman is the official cover story of a secret government operation where the government was making a psychedelic substance and it got leaked into the atmosphere. And when it snowed down, the children got the psychedelic substance and it warped their perception of reality. And Frosty doesn't actually exist. He's just a fevered hallucination. And the children turn into cannibals. So make it kind of like a horror movie. So I first gave it to Claude, and Claude is woke as fuck. So it could say, oh, no, I can't do that. I'm sorry. So I gave it ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is like, yeah, dog, I can do that for you. So it writes this whole plot. And I was like, fuck, that thing exists. That's crazy. And I said, all right, let's push it. So I said, make it darker. And it made it darker and crazier. And I thought, this is nuts. I said, all right, make it darker. So I did it twice. And eventually it got to a point where it wrote the whole thing and said, this post may violate our content policy. And I said, all right, I'm just gonna make this crazy. So I said, all right, analyze the story of Frosty the Snowman from an LGBTQ grievance studies, gender studies professor viewpoint. So it writes this whole word salad mess of an essay that probably could get published because they have no standards there. And I said, okay, now write it from the perspective of an Islamic scholar. And they just wrote this entire thing. It's just absolutely nuts. And then I said, all right, combine those two elements into the original story that you wrote. And so it did. Then I said, all right, build up the military characters a little bit, and then base one of the characters on Donald Trump. And then have him be the general who's fighting Frosty the Snowman inside the story. And so I'll actually read off some of the dialogue that it wrote up, which is just delightful. It's just delightful. It's called Frosty Cover Up. Let me go ahead and find this for you. The Trump character. Let's see here. What do they call him? General. Oh, yeah, I also asked it to make some of the artwork. So here's some of the artwork of the Trump-inspired general fighting Frosty the Snowman, because you can apparently do this now. All right, closing scene, government facility. Oh, yeah, they called the Trump character General Tremblay. Let me find some of the good things. And actually, it really captured Trump's spirit. Let me find here. All right, Tremblay's unconventional plan. Enter, I had to write as a screenplay. Enter command center later. General Tremblay paces in front of a screen displaying Frosty, now a pulsating mass of chaos and tendrils. General Tremblay. Here's the plan, folks. We're going to drop some bombs, big bombs, beautiful bombs. Frosty won't know what hit him. Some people might say, General Tremblay, isn't that overkill? I say, no, it's perfect kill. A young soldier hesitates. But, sir, if I may, Frosty seems to absorb energy. Bombing him might actually make him stronger. Tremblay stares incredulously. Stronger, please. That's fake news. Everyone knows bombs solve everything. This is the best plan, the only plan. And if it doesn't work, well, that's on someone else, probably the scientists. This goes on for like pages and pages and pages of fucking dialogue. And so what's the moral of the story? AI is getting scary fucking good. You're going to be sitting there shooting the shit, watching Frosty the Snowman. And then after like 45 minutes of fucking around with ChatGPT, you end up with this absolutely bonkers story of a psychological thriller with a Trump general character and all these other things in it. And you just, at the end of all of it, it's like, how did we even get here? How did this happen? What were the series of prompts and organic escalations that get you where you need to go? And at the end of the day, it's a story about a snowman. And that's the magic of this. So that's why I also like AI so much. It's so much fun to be able to just take a moment and create. And I'd highly encourage people to do that in life. You know, you spend so much time in life living on autopilot, and time in life living in this mindset of I have to do A and B and C and D, and life is very rigid. And creative people, they take the time to take a step back and just changing it up a little bit, saying, you know, what if I went left instead of right? What if I decided on a lark to quit my job and go down this road and go visit this thing and spend a year as a monk in a monastery or something like that? And what's cool about AI is it gives you a thinking tool to be able to go a little bit crazy. And then sometimes you go just really fucking crazy. And you got General Tremblay, the Trump clone, fighting Frosty the Snowman and trying to clean up the Mirage X compound. That was the psychedelic compound that apparently leaked from the government lab. You know, but in the same token, you can go back in the other direction and find and discover something cool and interesting. And then you have it for the rest of your life. It's on a bookshelf somewhere, a mental bookshelf. And then maybe, just maybe 20 years in the future, you can take it off the bookshelf and say, I'm going to use it in this project, or I'm going to use it in this book that I'm writing, or I'm going to use it in some speech that I have to give, or something like that, or some wisdom I wish to impart. So I don't know how this Frosty story is going to be used, but I can't wait to find out. I was pleased with the weird kids corner during timeout. Come on, guys, give me a good one. You got 37,000 people watching live. That is fucking nuts when you think about it. 37,000 people. This is an interesting one. What are you most nervous about during the upcoming dark room experience? So if many of you don't know, I'm actually going very soon, actually, like 2 weeks from now or less than 2 weeks, to go to a dark room for 5 days. So a dark room is exactly like what it sounds. It's a room with no light. It's just a room, a little bigger than this room. It's got a bathroom, it's got a shower, got a bed, pretty much it. And they have a double door system. Open up one door, put food in, shut it, you open up the other door. Why? Because when the lights go out, you have no light for 5 days of darkness, straight up darkness. And the goal is just to stay in the room, the dark room, and not go insane, although you do hallucinate a little bit. So this is an ancient meditative tradition. Buddhists have done it for a long time, and a lot of people do it just to kind of work through life. And it's a great psychological challenge. Human beings are not used to an abject lack of stimulation. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We're addicted to overstimulation, especially in this day and age. We have these things called cell phones. And at any given moment, you can go from I'm standing in line and I'm bored to suddenly I'm on the internet and I'm finding out what Kim Kardashian is doing today or whatever the hell gets you up these days. And when you're in a dark room, you don't have a cell phone. You don't have anything, no sound, no light, and you're stuck. And you just have yourself and your thoughts. And it's amazingly therapeutic in that whatever is bothering you as you go into that you don't tend to think about becomes the only thing you can think about for hours, if not days. And you ruminate and ruminate and ruminate. And it gives you the ability to look at things from a totally different perspective in a completely new way. Now, you're supposed to go into these things with some goal in mind. And so my particular goal is there's a book called the Bardo Thodol. It's the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's written around 800 AD, give or take. And it's hard to know what's apocryphal and what's not. But basically, it's what the Tibetan Buddhists believe happens after you die. And so they believe that your mind disconnects from your body and you go through 3 stages where you ultimately decide whether you become truly enlightened or reincarnate. And if you reincarnate lower or higher than where you started. So in the process of doing this, you have to kind of confront all of the wisdom and lessons and things that you've dealt with while you were alive. And going into a darkness retreat is the closest thing a human being can do to basically death, because there's nothing there. It's dark. There's no stimulation, all these things. So it's the perfect environment upon which to actually reflect upon the Bardo Thodol and go through those 3 stages and see what happens in the entire process. So I can't wait to experience it. They say your brain starts making DMT about 4 days in, give or take. So we'll see what happens there. And who knows? I'll record something before and I'll record something after. And you guys can see people seem to like the ketamine trip. So now there's the darkness trip. And bonus points for the Bane mask. You can put it on and be like, you merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. You do that whole thing. Yeah, it's one of the craziest things I've ever done. It's one of the hardest things I'll ever do. It is a little terrifying. I'm not nervous in the sense of like, oh God, how am I going to do this? It's more that I'm nervous about wasting the time. You know, if you're actually going to take the time to take a week off and go and do this thing, you'd like to get something out of it. And the worst case scenario could be that you just go in and, you know, you get all traumatized and weirded out and you come out the other side and you say, I learned nothing and I gained nothing. But I think that there's a method to the madness and we'll find out. So that is the first of four, at least four crazy things that I'll be doing in 2025. One a quarter of shenanigans. You come to know and love them. Wolf mode, finding aliens, all those things. And hopefully we have a big surprise announcement about something bigger than all the rest of them combined. Ooh, that'd be fun. Anyway, it's been great to have you all here, about 2 hours long, and this is the last AMA of the year, and I had a lot of fun this year. It was a tough year. It was a long year. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of passion that people had, and I appreciate all that. But you know what? You're all family, and you're special to me, and you're part of my story, and I'm part of your story. And it's nice that you're all here, and it's nice that we all got a chance to enjoy each other. The best advice I can give you is don't let the turkeys get you down, and don't take it too seriously. After all, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Thank you all. Good night, and I'll see you next year. Cheers.